A writer for the Los Angeles Times described Al and Peggy as more Godzilla and Attila than Ozzy and Harriet, and one Married with Children episode was so controversial it wasn't broadcast for over a decade. Filth sounds pretty romantic. So what was the banned episode of Married with Children? Did Married with Children have a proper ending? Where the heck can I watch it? Is it on Netflix or Hulu? Let's go find out. I'm Nostalgic Nick, and today we're gonna talk about love and marriage, or at least what passes for it in the Bundy household. Fox didn't have deep pockets like the big three broadcast networks and decided to push the envelope with edgier programming. Series co-creator Michael Moye wanted to flip the script on conventional sitcoms and created a family that lived paycheck to paycheck, just like the rest of us. He also discovered there's no such thing as bad publicity. You won't want to miss the shocking story of this banned Married with Children episode. Before we do, hit that thumbs up icon to show us some support. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss a new video. But without further ado, come on, our show is starting. Not the Cosbys. The original working title for Married with Children was Not the Cosbys, and the Bundys were everything the Huxtables were not. Executive producer Michael Moye believed the American people were ready to laugh again after a decade of preachy situational comedies, and if you think that makes me uncool, then you're wrong, saying they shouldn't have to worry about learning anything. Al and Peg were inspired by Sam Kinison and Roseanne Barr, who passed on the roles to focus on films. Roseanne would get her own show on ABC a year and a half later, and Kinison guest starred as Al's guardian angel in one episode. You wanted 3 wishes? Get a genie. But contrary to popular belief, the Bundys were not named after serial killer Ted Bundy, but after wrestling legend King Kong Bundy, who also guest-starred in 2 episodes. Their next-door neighbors were named after the American Dream himself, Dusty Rhodes. When it came time to cast Al, the hint husband, most of the actors who auditioned were seemingly inspired by Jackie Gleason's character, from The Honeymooners, or Jack Nicholson's character from The Shining, Here's Johnny. But casting director Mark Hirschfeld had recently seen Ed O'Neill play Lenny in an off-Broadway production of Mice and Men, and he suggested bringing him in for an audition. Ed O'Neill told Rich Eisen he was inspired by his uncle as he prepared for the audition and portrayed the character as someone who no longer expected to be happy. Moye wasn't convinced a dramatic actor would be suitable for the role, but all it took was seeing O'Neill's body language as he sighed, slumped his shoulders, and walked through the door. Moye said, quote, "He didn't have to say another word. That was Al Bundy." Now, the producers envisioned Peggy as a lazy slob who didn't take care of herself, but Katie Sagal decided she would be a woman who still considered herself sexy. She chose a wardrobe that was very dated but successfully accentuated her figure. Peggy constantly seemed on the verge of tipping over as she walked around in high-heel mules from Fredericks of Hollywood, and Sagal finished out the ensemble with her trademark bouffant hairstyle. Tina Caspary and Hunter Carson played Kelly and Bud in the unaired pilot but didn't have the right chemistry with O'Neill and Sagal. When Christina Applegate was asked to read for Kelly, she already had a recurring role and was on the fence about shooting a pilot, but she agreed to watch the pilot with her mom, and that was all the convincing she needed. David Faustino had recently switched agents when they needed a new Bud. When his new agent told him they were recasting the pilot, Faustino's mother said he didn't even get a call back at his first audition. The agent replied, quote, "Oh well, let's just go back in again and see what happens." Katie Sagal admitted that Married with Children was very misogynistic and women were exploited, but also said, quote, "Playing Peg had nothing to do with what I thought. That was my job." Ed O'Neill would say, quote, "These characters are just supposed to make people laugh, not teach or enlighten anyone." And he asked, were Laurel and Hardy role models? Is Elmer Fudd a role model? But despite all of its faults, Seattle writer Matt Baum praised the series for showing, quote, "surprising sensitivity toward the LGBTQ community." Baum said at a time when sitcoms used gay characters as plot devices or punchlines, some series went out of their way to show that same-sex couples are totally normal. In fact, Baum claimed that Al Bundy was more accepting of a gay marriage than Blanche Devereaux on The Golden Girls. It's easier for you to say that, Sophia. It's not your brother who's getting married to a man. In the Season 5 episode The Dance Show, Dan Castellaneta, who voices Homer Simpson, shows up at Al's door to tell him, "I just think you ought to know that your wife has been seeing my husband." Ul's only reaction is wondering how he'll get dinner now. Ul's initially confused about the mechanics of a gay marriage, but he doesn't have a problem with it. In fact, he discovers that a man might be a more suitable mate than a Peggy. You work, you cook, and you like sports. I love you. When Barbra Streisand's home was photographed for the California Coastal Records project in 2003, the funny girl went nuts, and the harder she tried to suppress the photo, the more determined internet viewers were to see it. You know, the internet. 2 years later, TechDirt writer Mike Marsnick coined the phrase, Streisand effect. There might not have been a term for it yet, but that's exactly what happened to Michigan housewife Terry Rakolta when she attempted to get married with children taken off the air. The 1989 episode Her Cups Runneth Over was full of sexual innuendo, scantily clad women, and references to sex toys and pornography. Yeah, let's see the Japanese build a better one of those. Rakolta was absolutely beside herself after viewing the episode and insisted on speaking to the manager. The network wasn't even fully staffed yet when Rakolta called the Fox switchboard. The producer, Vosberg, admitted her own mother did not like the show but also told Rakolta it wasn't required viewing. Rakolta wasn't happy with that answer and initiated an aggressive letter-writing campaign to the show's sponsors. A few sponsors cancelled their commercials but soon changed their minds after ratings increased by 117%. The cast sent Rakolta flowers every year. The series was renewed, and the whole controversy was spoofed in No Pot to Pisan. In the episode, the Bundys discover that there's a show based on their lives, but it gets cancelled because a housewife in Michigan didn't like it. The suits got nervous during the Rakolta controversy. Married with Children was moved to a later time slot, and Fox executives began to look over the producers' shoulders. Before the season 3 episode I'll See You in Court aired, they had some notes. In the episode, Ul and Peggy have an illicit tryst at the Hop-On Inn to give their stagnant sex life a little CPR. I don't want to have sex. You're my wife, for God's sake. They are initially amused when they discover a sex tape in the room starring their neighbors, Steve and Marcy, but when they discover they too were recorded in the act, both couples decide to sue the pants off the hotel. The network brass wanted to make so many changes, the producers believed the episode wasn't even funny anymore, and Fox decided not to air the episode at all. This infamous banned episode was eventually included in DVD box sets and finally aired during FX reruns in 2002. Why was Married with Children cancelled? The cast of Married with Children expected the show to be renewed for a 12th and final season, but Fox pulled the plug between seasons. They never shot an official series finale, and the network executives failed to notify anyone working on the show before they made the announcement. Ed O'Neill got the news from a newlywed couple who was staying at the same hotel, and he bought them a bottle of champagne to celebrate. Ed O'Neill believes the show was cancelled because affiliates began to put pressure on Fox and Sony Pictures Television to end the show. You see, the syndication rights were well over $1 million per episode, and the series had nearly 3 times the episodes needed for syndication. Both O'Neill and Katie Sagal believed the series was neglected by Fox, even though they kept the network in the black for over a decade. Alright, that's been our look at the infamous banned episode of Married with Children. So now, we need to hear from you. What was your favorite episode? Do you believe the show was revolutionary, or do you agree with Terry Rakolta that it's just tasteless smut? What's a more recent TV show that reminds you of Married with Children? Get in the comments and tell us all your thoughts. After all, we are nothing without you. If you enjoyed our Married video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you never miss a memory, and from all of us here at Do You Remember, we want to thank you very much for watching.